Welcome back to Super Tuesday Recap. This is your host, Kriss and Dpalm here, and we are here to review episode 12 of season 5 of The Flash. Memorabilia. I'm not going to read the summary because it actually has me click that link to go see full summary. I'm not doing that. I'm not doing that. So, basically this episode, we go into, the mind of Nora and Grace, and, man, these little kids are kind of fucked up, not I don't know if going into the mind of your child from the future is something you would want to do, but Barry
they didn't mean to do it,
right? I know they didn't mean to do it, but it's just like, yeah, Barry was way too happy in the Flash Museum. I will give you that. Like, just like, hey, dude,
no. See, you're doing this all wrong. Your approach in this episode is something that actually happened. This was 60 minutes of Easter eggs. 60 minutes of love letters to fans of the Flash.
It really was.
How dare you muddy the waters with like plot and desire? No, we got what we needed, which was, first of all, one of the most ridiculous uses of comic book technology ever. We're gonna just invade your brain. Yeah. All right.
with the Mad Hatter name drop. Yeah.
Nigga, look, I was like, all right.
It is funny because, so from a technical point of view of this episode, some of it I was like, yeah, I kind of was waiting for some bigger reveals, but like you said, it's like it is 42 minutes of Easter eggs. It just really is. They even dropped in the
Dexter Miles. They dropped in 2 covers, one of which is a cicada one, and one of which was the Return of Grodd.
Yeah.
They were selling Flash rings in the souvenir store, which, Barry, some of those Flash toys had yellow boots on.
I know.
Like, let's go.
They
this started on Future Detective seeing the Red Death. Nigga, look, I know you didn't read Metal.
No. So, see, here you go, making assumptions of your co-host.
Yes,
nigga. I was like, wait a minute, it's
not doing what you say you're going to do as far as reading. Yeah.
First of all, I read enough of Metal to know.
I read enough.
Actually, no. And wait, let me take that back. I read all the main books of Metal. I did.
Okay.
Yeah, I read all of Metal. I didn't get all the side. So I know who the Red Death is because I believe the Red Death was, the Red Death book was one of the Flash books. So I remember that. So I was like, wait, Red Death. I had to look it up to make sure there wasn't another Red Death. I was like, there's no way they're actually talking about. There's no way they're talking about the murderous Flash, Bruce Wayne, Batman from Earth -52. There's no way.
Bruce Wayne imbued with the Speed Force. That's who Red Death is. Absolutely not. There's no way.
I was like, there's no way they're talking. So I had to look it up to see if there was another Red Death. I was like, there's got to be 2 Red Deaths. There's got to be 2 Red Deaths, right?
Just the one.
And I was like, huh. So when they do this, when they always name drop the villain for the next season.
That's what makes me so worried. I'm like, wait. What did you just do? Because, so what I think happens next season, this isn't a spoiler. There's no way for me to guess. If I'm right, then is that the season will go on. There'll be a week bad, but after the Elseworlds crossover, Barry's gone. In his place is a Flash who has no connection to anyone. And the mystery of who is this new Flash comes. Do you remember when Wally disappeared in his book and the Dark Flash appeared?
Yeah.
I think they're going to do something like that. And then that character might turn to be the Red Death. But now I'm just like, as soon as they said that, and I thought like you did, like, remember they said the Thinker? Uh-oh. And that's where my head went to. Like, it's just, bravo show. As far as just sheer Easter eggs, this was a very heavy episode.
Oh, yeah. Easter egg wise, so like you said, they had actual comic book covers.
Yep.
In the episode. Like, guys, what are we doing? Come on. Like, and to me, I don't have a problem with that because to me, it's the fun aspect of the Flash.
Very much so.
Even with this kind of being kind of a heavy episode too, it still makes it still kept it the fun episode. Like I said, like Barry was us when he's going through the Flash Museum. Like you're like, yo, Barry, you're there to save your daughter. Like, what are we doing here? And then you're like,
right.
But the The toy does have yellow boots though, so I get it.
Very yellow boots, like bright yellow boots.
I get it. So, but yeah, I mean, like I said, to me overall, like it's a fine episode. But it captures. In the past, I think I would have hated an episode like in previous season because they wouldn't have done it. Like, I think this episode is still done well enough that even though it is kind of like an episode that's kind of giving us bits and pieces for the rest of the season, it feels more. It doesn't feel as disjointed as they would have done in previous seasons. So, for instance, the idea of Nora at the beginning of this episode, basically, you know, she's talking to Thawne when she's giving this speech, but you're still. It's still
she's
like
recounting how he trained her, which is so weird.
I was just like, oh, Thawne trained her how to do all this stuff, and I'm just like, oh God, I hate Thawne. Like you just like you could just tell, and then at the end, when you get what she was sent back to do, her mission was to send back to stop Cicada. So like, why? Why is it the fact that you know we saw in the flat they mentioned several times that Cicada has shown up earlier this time. And it was a big deal that they never stopped Cicada, and he came back and he killed all these people. He was a serial killer. So why was he specifically sent back to stop Cicada? Like, why is it that she's sent back to stop Cicada and not to like keep her dad from disappearing? What is it about Cicada that is the reason for this? Like, I don't know. And it's an interesting question. And maybe does it have something to do with the ticking clock that we see with Thawne? So I don't know, but I just know Thawne's evil.
It's a lot of possible answers, and that's kind of the fun of it right now. Is that they set up a situation where you know we can't trust one of the people who we want to trust the most.
Right.
Like you're talking about micro expressions and lingering thoughts. Like God, that's what you like. The idea that she's a better time traveler than Barry because of her training for Thawne makes perfect sense.
Yeah, well, it also gives you this thing of you know what, because we've talked. I think we've talked about it this season about how much of a better time traveler Thawne was than Barry. Like Thawne went back into time, made all these changes. We know time is malleable. This is the thing we talk about all the time, and never got caught. Right? Barry goes back, does one thing, and always fucking fucks up. So the question then, like you said, like we know that you hear, but we've never kind of like we've never vocally talked about what it is that Thawne did to kind of stay under the radar. And here you have kind of Nora kind of you know recounting the things that Thawne had taught her about how to blend in this time and not to let things get out of hand. And you're like, God damn it, yo, like. I have so many other questions now because like Nora is so like she's not reliable in other things.
She's a kid.
She's a kid, right? But like when it comes to the time travel stuff, she's actually been pretty good. And I'm like, that's a huge disconnect. Like she doesn't know how to be a hero, but a time traveler?
But that goes back to what I think is happening with these documents that he's still teaching her. He's constantly teaching her the intricacies of time travel.
Yeah.
And that's what the back and forth is. She sends him information on what's happening, and he tells her how he wants things nudged and pushed. And even her starting the paper 2 years early, that's a nudge, that's a push. Yeah. What does it change? What does that matter for Thawne's condition? Is she going to go back one time and he just not be in that cell?
Because, like, Thawne is not doing this stuff out of the goodness of his heart. Because he wants to atone for the stuff. Nobody's falling for that shit. Nobody's falling for that shit. So... You're right. I find, and again, that's why I like episodes like this because they didn't make it a big deal, right? It's at the beginning of the episode and the end of the episode, and we have all this other stuff in the middle, but we get the two bookends, and we're like, this is an interesting thing of tie, and this is an episode where you kind of tie in the Thawne thing, and you now tied in Cicada. Remember, when we came back from break, we brought that up. We were like, well, how are they going to tie Cicada and Thawne together? And now that we know that Thawne's working in the background here, is that going to take away from Cicada? Well, here now we kind of see this related. Nora was sent back by Thawne, told supposedly to stop Cicada. So right. What does all this really mean? What does all this really matter? And they've done a good job of tying those things together now. So I appreciate that. I appreciate the fact that we get more information on the Central City Citizen, and that is not just Iris writing for the newspaper; it's her newspaper.
That's a very big. So apparently, this blog that we've never seen her work on, because she spends all her time in Star Lab, is so successful that she's like, let's go forth from a blog to print because it's 1933 again. What? I don't get it. Like,
well, you got to remember
a show where they entered their daughter's mind, so of course you got to stretch some plausibility here. But we have never seen. I know they've had 2 or 3 passing mentions this season of, "Hey, I love your blog," but we've never seen her working on it. I've never seen her like, "How am I going to fill today's content?" Is she an ad blogger? Is she someone who's like, is she a Firefest person? Like, what kind of blogging is she doing?
So I get that, but remember there was that time when they was it this season or was it last season where she blogged something and she got the city to respond? So no, it was last season. Remember last season with DeVoe, they sent out the message to the city on her blog, and they got responses back to kind of tell them DeVoe sightings. So you're right. I think they could do a better job of seeding like at least like every other episode something with her doing something with the blog, because they do that with Ralph, right? Like Ralph, they really worked on his detective skills, and we know that Iris is a journalist because season 1 that's what she was dealing. Season 2 a little bit. We know she's worked in this blog, but it's not a consistent thing here. But I do think they haven't done a good enough job of reminding us of how big her blog is. Like every now and then they've come in and said things like that. Like we brought this up last season with the DeVoe thing. We were like, her blog.
I didn't believe it then.
Right, her blog.
Her
blog. We were like, her blog doing numbers like that. Really? And then this season they had the thing with the other chick where she was like, "Oh, I love your blog," and "Oh yeah, your blog is why I'm blogging," and things like that. And so they haven't done it. Like I'm okay with them doing it this way, and maybe with her making it the Central City Citizen, it'll become it'll give her a location to have to be at and work out of. And I think that might have been the biggest thing is when you say it's a blog, you can kind of do it anywhere. Like we've seen her blog from bed. But by giving it an office space, maybe that gives it a little bit more legitimacy, and they can actually do something with it. So I don't know.
For all its like advancement in 2019 clearly in the show, who the fuck starts a newspaper?
Yeah, well, I mean, there's that.
Who the fuck starts a newspaper?
I mean,
he's like, now I've got a new Insta. Like that's what. Like what? Like, I got a Snapchat account that gives the news in 10-second bits. I don't know how Snapchat works actually. I just what.
I mean, that's the thing the only thing I can figure with this is
it's hipsters reading your shit.
Well, no, what I'm gonna say is they make it a digital newspaper. So if they make it so
now
that
it's like you're on an email list. Well,
yeah, a bigger, more structured blog like the Huffington Post. That's what I'm thinking about. That's the only thing I can figure with the Central City Citizen is that they make it into something like a Huffington Post or a Guardian or something like that, where it's an online newspaper where and for that you would need a central office. But you're right. It's one of those things that we've known she's done this, but I want them to give it the same treatment they've kind of given with everybody else. Like everybody else. And I know it's kind of weird with Iris because Iris represents so much stuff with the team. And it's not that they haven't given her anything to do. It's like, well, she's like, oh, yeah,
what she's doing doesn't make sense outside of the auspices of her being leader of the team.
Well, and that's the thing. It's like, it's almost like it's a downgrade. And it's because, like, okay, yeah, she's a journalist, but it's like, Iris is the leader of the team. Like, she sends Team Flash out on the missions. And I guess it's one of those things of saying that she needs something to do. And to be fair, I think this is what it is. They have shown her out there at like crime scenes, interviewing and doing journalism, stuff like that. So maybe that's what I think it's just been a disconnect of them calling it a blog. Because when you think blog, you don't think like online newspaper or online journalism. I don't really think of that way. And I guess maybe by making it the Central City Citizen and making this online newspaper, that'll give it more legitimacy. Because think back to it, it's like they do have her out in the field interviewing people. Like the several times she shows up onto a scene and she's like, I don't have no comment, Miss West. No, we're not going to comment on this. Oh no, Chief. So she has been doing that. She has been doing some investigative journalism, We just haven't seen that other part of her actually going in and kind of like really writing the articles and things like that. So I don't know. I'm okay.
And now
with
we get
it.
to see her do it under a black and white filter with Perry White yelling at her. It's great.
I mean, well, no, she's going to be Perry White. That's the thing about this. Like, she's the
newspaper.
She's the Perry White.
It's a fucking newspaper. I'm not.
I'm
thinking about just being a town crier. I'm just standing on street corners, yell things at people, and hand out pamphlets. Like what?
I look at it like I'm interested in seeing what they do with it. And now that you've given her,
how is she the paper of record by 2024? None of this makes sense. So let's just move on.
Well, no, wait. But is she? But is she though? All we know is that newspaper article is there. It doesn't mean that, it's the best newspaper in Central City. I mean, obviously, it's the one that, she wrote the article. And I think that's the reason why it features so heavily in there. I don't know. Like I said, I'm thinking that because they give her an office, that there's got to be a bigger plot line they're going to do with it. Like, this is not something you can just sit there and go, okay, we've given her an office, she's going to do this, and then you leave it alone for 10 episodes. Like, I'm expecting this now to, like, actually become fully formed. We'll see. Let's see. I appreciate Ralph trying to take Cisco out there today.
Yo, Ralph's the dude. Like, I'm sorry. Like, I'm in on Ralph. This is great. I've always been on Ralph, but Ralph, like, tricking his friend into having a good time. Right. That's a good friend. That's a good friend.
No, I mean, Ralph has been, and we talked about this at the beginning of the season, and Ralph has been a good turnaround. Like, they definitely have improved on Ralph's behavior this season. So even when he comes in here and he's, you still make mention of the idea of, Ralph not paying, but he's just being a good guy. He's been being a good friend to everybody. He's a good friend to Killer Frost and Caitlin. Now he's being a good friend to Cisco. Like, I appreciate it. And I even appreciate his whole thing going like, I need friends. I have friends now, so.
Yeah.
Appreciate that. Let's see. Sherloque is great. Ira's like, you knew this was a possibility? He's like, yeah, so I told you guys to go in pairs. Nobody told Nora to go in the
like, I told you the possibilities. Yes, I warned everyone.
Right.
No one listens.
His whole thing about how he's like, I guess you're gonna tell me you had a partner named Watson. It's like, no, it's like Watson. It was like, God damn it, yo. Just he's having too much fun with this. Way too much fun on it.
He really is. And of course his partner not being Watson, but Watson, of course. The Jarvis testing already talked about, which is just a great little Easter egg. And then almost letting Nora, watching Nora squirm.
So I again, we've talked about this before. I love what this Wells is doing. He's giving her. He really is pulling the Mueller. He is giving her enough rope to get herself in trouble. Like, he let her sit out there and squirm a little bit, then gave her the way out. It's like, no, you just didn't want your parents to see your memories. That's what it was. That's what you were hiding. It's nothing else. And then he goes and he's piecing together the greatest case against Nora. And it's gonna be glorious when he presents. Hey, just out of curiosity, what was the defense mechanism that Nora's brain formed? It's like, oh, one of my villain's costume. It's like, oh, really? What costume? The reverse flash. Interesting. Thanks for letting me know. Like,
and then you also see a flash of something in Barry's eyes too. Barry's like, wait a second, why would that?
Yeah.
And she's been asking a lot of questions about Thawne. I don't know. This isn't looking good for Nora.
No, I mean, but you also get why she's doing it. Like, she is clearly, she's not, she's a young girl who is missing her father, who obviously is getting taken advantage of by her father's greatest enemy. Like, this is a man, like, when you see that memory of her in the Flash Museum, first the false memory, then the real one, you realize this is a girl who never, it seemed like never knew that the Flash was her father. So now I'm beginning to wonder, was it Thawne that told her?
Right.
Because she's like, when Iris is talking to her, Iris says it was like, when she's talking to Iris, she's like, young her is like, oh yeah, you told me that the Flash was my dad's favorite hero before he died. And it's like, oh goodness, Iris, you didn't even tell her that Barry was her dad. That Barry Allen was the Flash and that the Flash was her dad. You didn't even tell her that. So now it's like, did she get all that information from Thawne? Is Thawne the one that helped her remove the inhibitor? Is Thawne the one that told her who her dad was? Like, and then that would explain why she has such a problem with Iris, because in the real memory, you see that Iris is the Iris we know. She's the kind, loving Iris that loves her daughter and isn't like. Cause I'm not gonna lie, I was like, shit, what happened to turn Iris into like? Iris is a mean parent, just like breaking toys and snatching. I was like, damn, Iris, like you done changed, and then you find out that's the false memory. Iris is actually the Iris we know. She's very kind and loving. And
the thing is, it's not a false memory because, as Barry said it can't. Or I think Iris said it came from a real place. The memory was just tainted by how she felt at the time. It's why memory is deemed so unreliable as far as being a witness statement. It's just it doesn't hold up. And I think that was a really good illustration of everything's being colored. I like how they did it with the negative and the positive with the two memories, but. Yeah, I thought that was really a really good wrinkle because you're right. What she was remembering, while it's not factual, that was real to her. That's how she remembered it.
And I can understand why she felt that way if she later finds out that her mom was lying to her about who the Flash was. Like, that's where that anger comes from. It's not that Iris did anything wrong. Because, again, Iris' whole thing was she's so afraid of... Like, when Iris was so upset about it being called the Central City Citizen, I was like, why are you upset with it being called that? Like, I didn't put the two together that that's the newspaper, and then that would mean that she owns that newspaper where she writes the article about the Flash disappearing. I'm like, oh, didn't notice that. Oh, okay. So if Nora finds if Iris is clearly worried about becoming that person, and you find out that. Well, you didn't change anything. It's just that your daughter's view of you is tainted because what kids think all the time, everything I knew was a lie, and that taints all her other memories about that. And it's very obvious that the taint comes from, who taints this is Thawne, because that's what Thawne does. Like, I found it very interesting what, the memory, the defense mechanism said, which was basically like, I'm going to take your family from you.
Right. Yeah.
He's kind of done that by like corrupting her daughter. Like, I corrupted your daughter, I corrupted your daughter that you weren't there to see grow up. Mm-hmm. It reminds me of that scene in The Dark Knight where, the Joker says to the cop, it's like, it's almost like I know your friends closer than you, better than you do. Want to know which ones were cowards? It's like Thawne could drop that kind of line to Barry about his own daughter. It's like, I kind of know your kid better than you do. I taught her everything she knows. Like, Thawne's evil enough to do that shit. So
very much so.
And then the flip side is we see Grace's memory where. Kind of get the bombshell that Grace has a piece of the satellite shard, dark matter, in her head, and I'm now wondering because she hears everything that her father.
She could be controlling the Doctor or Cicada.
I kind of believe that's what. I'm trying to figure out, but is that what it is? Like
if it's not, that's how you would do the thinker, by the way.
Or is she is she controlling the dagger? Because I found it very interesting that the cicada manifestation in her mind is her. It's her grown up
Right.
self.
That's why I was like, I thought it was her controlling him, but you could be right too.
Because remember, the whole thing has been is meta tech, right? So you know, and it doesn't mean that Orlin himself isn't fucked up and doesn't have some kind of issue. Because again, he's also been infected, so it could be a little bit of both, that they have some kind of connection through the dagger or something like that. But it's very interesting to me now, and it adds a new layer to this, that you know they were trying to save Grace and thinking that Grace was their end to Cicada, but it seems like Grace is just as upset and angry at Metas as Orlin is, if not more so. So I don't know what that means, you know. And we also know that the dollhouse was the trigger in the false memory in Grace's mind. So I'm really intrigued. I'm really intrigued to see what they do. And I gotta say, they've made Cicada more interesting than I thought they ever could.
Oh, 100%. This has gone from one note kind of serial killer villain to someone I don't want to leave the show now. I'm like, this is a villain that I'm invested in and intrigued by, and bravo to the writing staff.
My other question too is then, like, you know, they're like, Cicada showed up early. This is who he usually is. Like, and then I think he even said at one point he disappeared and then came back because the Flash never got him. What do we find out that it's Grace?
Right.
Grace grows up.
She grows up and does it and comes back.
Yeah. You know, so I don't know. They've made me really, really, you know, invested in the story of Grace and Cicada right now. So not a bad job. And then again, you throw in all the Flash, the fun Flash facts from the museum, and we get to see that they turn Star Labs into a museum. So I've really enjoyed that as well. So, yeah, that's all I got. You got anything else?
No, another great hour of Flash television. A lot of deep cuts for Flash nerds. Like I said, Dexter Miles even appearing was by voice was great for me. And put the suit in the ring, give him yellow boots.
I feel like it's gonna happen. I mean, we've already got the suit. We already got the suit in the ring. We already got the suit in the ring. So I feel like the yellow boots. Because here's the thing that I love about this, and we're gonna talk about this when we get into our. So we got a mailbag after this too, guys. So make sure you listen to our mailbag when we do this. But I was having this conversation, and we'll get more to this in the mailbag. But we were just talking about, you know, and one of our topics today is going to be talking about the DC film universe and why, you know, again, just staying with why they can't get shit together. And I look over here at what they do with the Arrowverse and all these shows and how they've just, even, I mean, not to say they're perfect or they haven't hit their stumbles blocks, but they always improve. And one of the things I love about what they've done with the Flash, it's such a small thing, is Barry basically gets a new suit every season. Every season he's gotten a new suit. So, like, you give me hope that I'm going to get yellow boots? Because, like, what's the next iteration of his suit that you can do? And it's like every season we get more closer to the comic book suit. So I'm like, the only thing really left right now is yellow boots. So we might get yellow boots. Like, it could absolutely, even if it's not like the entire season, it's just like they come up with some reason why you have to have yellow boots for one episode. Like, I just feel like it's going to happen because it feels like this show has become, you know, and everything in the Arrowverse has been like, we understand we understand where the stuff is coming from, and we know what the fans of these characters want to see, and they answer that. And how can you not love that? How can
they deliver every time they deliver, man.
Every time, like the idea that they're bringing even the idea, the mention of Red Death, a character that is, like, most people, like you said, might not know because it is a very recent new character, recently created, what, last year and a half, maybe?
Yeah.
Like, that's a big fucking deal. And then it gives us an idea of how we can bring Bruce Wayne onto the show, because you basically make him.
Look, the fact that they went with a full Bat villain for the Mad Hatter thing, I was really impressed with.
Yeah, you know, they've been doing a lot of this, and I don't know. Like I said, it's interesting seeing how this goes. This is why this universe will always have me, because I feel like they're always reinventing themselves and always finding new things to do. And like I said, I've really enjoyed this season. I've really enjoyed what they do. I feel like this has been a fan of the Flash season. If you are a Flash fan, this has been a good season for you. Because you get to see all this stuff, and they just keep throwing it in there. So I appreciate it. So, there you guys have it. Thank you guys very much for listening. Again, make sure you subscribe to Super Tuesday Recap, and you can listen to our mailbag. We have a lot of stuff to talk about here. Again, we usually do those at the end of every month. So if you want to send us an email us at mailbag@mtrnetwork.net, and we'll read it when we do. Obviously not January's mailbag. We'll read it in February's mailbag when you get that out there. Also, Dpalm and I just did our Character Corner. So if you go to the Character Corner podcast, we just wrapped up our second part of our history of comic books with the Bronze and Modern eras of comic books. And next month we're gonna jump into the Captain Marvel namesake. We got a lot of Captain Marvel. It's probably gonna be at least a two-parter to go through our Captain Marvel stuff. So yeah, folks, thank you guys very much for listening. Stay tuned, and we will be back soon. Thank you guys very much. Peace.